And welcome into This Life Matters. I'm Drew, and this is Gigi.
Hi there.
How you doing today?
I'm doing really well today. I've had my little fit of, frustrations with life and all that's gone and here I am.
Yeah. So we've decided to come back, and every week we're going to try to give you something to just help you cope through this time and get through some of the different things in life. And just in case you never, we have a different audience base potentially now. A lot of different people, a lot of people may not know, but we started this, would you say back in 2012-ish, 2011?
Maybe
Yeah.
2011.
Yeah, 2011, and a lot
Uh-huh.
different. We look a lot different now from when we started, but
Well, yes, I do. I've quit coloring my hair.
yeah, and I quit running.
Oh.
So that's the big difference between, because when I ran every day, there's a 50-pound difference here.
Oh, I couldn't have told that just from looking at you right
I
now.
think my face always remains a certain size,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but yeah, there's so we're a lot different in different locations. We started this in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the back of a church. Sometimes we did it in your office at a church, and
Mm-hmm.
so we've
Mm-hmm.
always, and then we would do it on the road. Sometimes we always try to bring you good shows, and so there's some archives of This Life Matters out there with us interviewing mayors and different politicians and entrepreneurs and just people who've done some great things. So
Mm-hmm.
go out there, take a look, and you'll find This Life Matters previous episodes. But right now, we're just reuniting. I always want to say, and it feels so good after.
And it feels so good.
Yeah,
That's right.
we're reuniting to just kind of just we have some time. I think everyone has a little bit more extra time on their hands. And we want to just bring you some good content, something to think about, and something to encourage you during this time. So today, like we promised last week, we're going to have a discussion around being a caretaker, what that looks like in many different ways. One thing about this pandemic is there's been a lot of misinformation as a part of the process. A lot of people have gone and taken the information in and processed it that younger people aren't susceptible to this, or that this is like the flu. And now we're starting to find out that it's not. We're starting to realize that anyone could get this, could get this, and could absolutely fall into a place of critical condition and could die from this. There are young people dying, older people dying. However, we still know that people 60 and up are more susceptible to getting really ill. And so no matter where you go across the board, there's a lot no matter where you go across the board, there are a lot of people who are uh, isolated right now. And at this point, everyone in the country should be under quarantine. Everyone should be
Absolutely.
at home. And this is a very, very serious thing. So during this time, knowing that everyone should be at home doesn't stop the factor that there are some essential things that have to be done in your life. You're going to have to go get medicine. You're going to have to go to the grocery store. And to be honest with you, although we're social distancing, you're still going to actually have to step outside the house at some point to get fresh air, which is very, very important. You don't necessarily have to go out there and touch someone else, but you do have to at least,
Right.
at some point, get out of the house and get fresh air. Those are some essential things to do. And we have to, sometimes that can be difficult when we have neighbors, parents, children, even, and different people that we have to look out for to make sure that they have those essential things provided for. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how the caregiver or the caretaker has to take care of himself today.
Okay. As we're sitting here talking at this very moment, one of my daughters is at the grocery store for me.
Yeah. Now, how does
Yeah.
that make you feel?
Old. But she wants to do that, and she's very insistent of it, and that's okay. I sort of like sometimes being taken care of because I've been the caregiver for so many years for 4 children, and also my parents lived with us before they passed away. So, and I'm used to being the caregiver. So it's sometimes it's hard to accept being cared for when you're actually the one that's been doing all the caregiving for so long. But oh, we've got the whole sanitizing station set up in the garage. Everything comes in through the garage and it gets cleaned off before it comes into the house. And so I'm being well taken care of like that. The thing that I have noticed about myself is that, I'm not going to my office to see my clients. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm a certified healing touch practitioner. So I do distance healing as well, which is effective. And I'm doing telehealth counseling, but it's not the same as being in the same room with somebody. Just like Drew and I, when we were doing our radio show and our other podcastings, when he was in Tulsa, we were in the same room, and
Yeah.
there's a totally different feel to that. So being the one receiving is good, but I still have the need myself to do caregiving. And when you can't be in physical contact with someone to do that, like grandchildren, for instance, it's, or even my other daughters, it can get very disappointing and frustrating, like life is for a lot of it, for most everybody right now, and not understanding this. We're in a place that it hasn't hit totally yet, and the peak may not be for 2 or even 3 months. I've heard today, and thinking about physical distancing. A friend of mine wrote something that said, We're physical distancing, but we're socially connecting."
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're not really socially distancing; we're physically distancing. And people do need touch.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that live alone, for instance, they're not getting touch. And so to say, I'm going to go get your groceries and I'm going to leave them on the porch, great, but they're not getting physical touch. And so that's something that is probably going to affect a lot of people.
So, coming out, and it's just a future, question, a future speculation. How important will physical, like the therapy with physical healing and being involved with touch, how important is that gonna be coming out of this pandemic? Like, do you speculate there's gonna be a lot of people needing this type of healing moving forward?
Yes, and I think we can even just on a normal basis, just hugging. People miss that, and if you're living with someone, you can have that. But if you're alone, you can't have it. And I think there will be a lot of people that will say, "Oh, the massage therapy place is open, the beauty shop is open, the spa's open, the gym's open," and they're going to crave being around other people in a in that way. I think that they will, yes, and I
Yeah.
think for the kind of uh, therapy that I do, I think people will be in need of that. Yes, I do.
And by the time we get to that space, we'll know what precautionary measures we'll have to take to be
Mm-hmm.
responsible. I think that's the key factor is that there is a hope to look to. And it's sometimes we get into this space when you're in the middle, especially we're not even in the middle, we're in the beginning of this. You can feel like that's so far down the line that you want to act like it's not going to happen. But I find myself being encouraged by just the hope that we'll be back together again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when. I'm not in
Mm-hmm.
control, which is a huge factor of acceptance during this time and just understanding I'm not in control. I have to be okay with that. Um, but understanding, there's still a hope that we'll be back together again. There'll be hugs, There'll be kisses. There'll be, massages. All the different things that are needed to go through the healing process will be available. So I want to go back to ask you a question about losing the ability to do something that you've trained for, that you've always done. You're still capable of doing it. Because society has these, typical of no pandemic, sometimes we get to a certain age or we get to a certain portion of our life and society says this is not for you anymore. And so that's already a trauma to our soul sometimes, like that we have to deal with. But now for things to be prematurely kind of stripped abilities to do certain things, what are some of the coping mechanisms? Or is it just sadness? Or like how do you kind of go through the process of having this taken away?
That's interesting that you use that word go through the process, because I do think that's what we all are doing right now anyway, is we're all processing in our brains what this is. So this is two different kind of things we're talking about now, but processing in our brains what's really going on. It takes at last time on the show we talked about this being a grieving process in some regards, and that is a process that people go through at different rates, and people are going through this at different rates as well. um, and how they process things, some people do it faster than others, but it's a whole change internally, it seems like, of the thinking and the feelings that we have about what's going on right now in the world. There's so many layers to this. It's really kind of hard to just wrap your head around all of it that's going on. And so processing about how I am not being able to do what I'm doing. I'm doing it somewhat, but it's not the same. And I've had to, we have to accept, first of all, that that's the way it is. And so, on that level, for me, getting older and not being able to do physical things, some of them that I've been able to do when I was younger, that probably I did so much it caused me to lose the ability now to, having aches and pains or injuries, that if I hadn't been so crazy thinking I could do whatever I wanted to do when I was younger, I might not be feeling some of this now. But letting go of all of that is hard for people to do. And it does take a while to accept that, even though I can tell you, I don't know. I mean, you know how old I am, and I'm in that age group. I probably will never totally personally accept that I can't do whatever I want to do.
Right.
So, but you know me, I would think that. But it's hard to accept that. And I know, even talking with my clients, people that are at home and have several children right now that are different ages, especially younger ones or active kids, it is really tough to try to manage them. And as caregivers for the children, it's frustrating for people to have all of that. They're used to their kids being at school all day. They're used to one of the spouses maybe being out of the house all day. And all of a sudden, here we all are glumped all together in this house that now, even though it could be a 4-bedroom house, it seems like it's a one room RV or something.
Yeah.
So people are having some trouble with this right now. And here's what I've noticed. I've noticed that even the caregivers, parents or caregivers of your parents, uh, whatever the situation is, people are reacting a little differently now, and maybe a little bit kind of shorter with people.
Yeah.
As maybe a little more curt or snapping a little bit more. And it's because of all the stuff that's going on, all the changes that are going on. Have you noticed that too?
As a caregiver, yeah, it's so many things you just want to happen the way you envision it in your mind, and then you have to operate outside of that with like in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, it's like you got to remember, be patient, try not to be as agitated. But I think that's just, we have anxiety too, but we have to be out there, delivering.
When we're talking about caregivers and how we get tired, there's a phrase for that. It's called compassion fatigue, and that's what counselors call it. And that is when we, burning the candle at both ends, just don't take care of ourselves. Caregivers need to have self-care. Now, there's many ways to do that, and everybody knows, I think most people know what they need to do to take care of themselves. Of course, it's going to be your standard, what you're eating, movement, sleep, those kinds of things. But it goes beyond that. There's probably something that people really like to do. Like for me, I've noticed what I really want to do every day is for about, if I could do 30 minutes, that would be great. I want to go sit in this certain chair in my house and I want to read. And when I do that, I feel better. Whether, that's just one thing that I do.
Yeah.
But the main thing is we need to do the breathing. Uh, when caregiving gets to be fatigue and too much for us, we get burned out on it. There's all kinds of stress hormones that are being pumped out. We need to stop that. The only way to do that really is to stop what we're doing, breathe. We talked about in our podcast last week about this and how to do that, but I'll just repeat that we can just simply breathe in to the count of 4, hold it for 4, and let it out to the count of 6 or 8. And do that 2 or 3 times. And immediately your body will sense that there's a calmness coming over because your stress hormones will start not pumping out so much. So I would say if you're caregiving, find out, think about what it is that you would do to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
It can be one little thing. It doesn't have to be, oh, I need a whole day of not doing anything.
Yeah.
We can revitalize
Yeah.
ourselves in a short time. And we can certainly take 10 or 15 minutes a day minimum to do that for ourselves.
Yeah. And having a positive attitude to take what's given. We're in a situation where we may not be able to go to the movie theater or go into the comic book shop or some of the things that we normally would do that would be our release. But, coming back to the simplicity thing, and we talked about this a little bit last week, of just enjoying, like if things are stopping, stop with it. And so to be able to get into that little patch of grass, get into the simplicity of things, and just go back to say, okay, I may not have the things that I like as a release, but this is a good time to find something new. And this is a healthy thing because, to be honest with you, some of those things are crutches. Some of those things, it's okay for us to set a boundary and be okay that they're stopping. I love the movies. I love comic books. I can't go to the comic store. I can't go watch a movie. There's a community space called Northwest Doc here in Portland. Love being there. I'm around other documentary filmmakers who are absolute, just beautiful people inside now, and love being just in their presence, even because none of us really talk to each other sometimes because we're all doing something. But then when we do talk, it's a great community, and we can't be around each other and don't know when we will. But you know what? Maybe someone might set up, I'm saying this out loud thinking maybe it's going to be me.
Somebody will set up a Zoom meeting.
Maybe we'll set up a Zoom. And I've heard a lot of Zoom complaining. And I think it's a 50-50 blend because we're excited that we still get a chance to connect. But some of us are burned out on it because it's a little bit too much. But that's okay. Like be thankful and being grateful for those things. It's going to be some ebbs and flows. I am grateful that we can do this Life Matters this way. But when I think about how great it was when we could touch. That was
Yeah.
so much better.
Yeah.
But I
I
am
could come
grateful,
and rub the back of your little bald
and I
head.
could
And
avoid it and try to move out of the way. Those are the
yeah.
little things you miss, you know?
Right. Right.
So it's okay. We'll get back to that one day and we'll get into the spaces that we want to be in. But in the meantime, making the best out of, if you're a caregiver, just make the best out of what you have and take that time. Recognize that it's
Yeah.
important because, you know, a lot of people do depend on you, and that's true. But you yourself, you as a person, connect with you. There's a value to you. There's something special within you that makes you, you're one of those people, it's not just because someone says you're an essential worker. There's something about you that's special, that you decided to tap into that and be a caregiver and to be a person who looks out for others in your community. Take care of yourself, because that special part of you can easily become corrupted and can easily become tired. And, you know, Gigi put some really good words to it earlier. And just take that in and protect that part of you that's precious, that part of you that we all need. Don't let it die. It is a beautiful resource that's within you. And just take some time and connect and grow and feed that part of your spirit and feed that part of you through whatever measures that are available to you.
You know, some people are being called on to be caregivers that aren't naturally caregivers, too.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, and they may be taking care of the ones of us that are normally caregivers.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
um, so I don't know how this will play in. You can anybody can interpret it any way they want, but sometimes we have to be givers, and sometimes we need to be the receiver.
Yeah.
And it takes receivers for people to be givers.
Yeah.
So both people are going to we're going to have a little bit of courtesy and grace with each other. And I think that's one of the main things to think of is we need to be a little bit more courteous, because when we're, especially if you're with a bunch of people or some people in your house, we're a little on edge, so we can be a little snippy and snappy, and so we need to watch that as well.
Yeah.
I'll tell you you know how we all have these, do you call them dirty little secrets or whatever? Here's my dirty little secret today. When I want to be alone and kind of get away, I go upstairs to this room that is I've made into my office now. And okay, I have a deck of cards up there. And even if I'm not working, I get my deck of cards and shuffle them up and I play solitaire. And so that's kind of now everyone knows my dirty little secret, that that's what I'm doing up there. It used to be one time, oh, I was having some surgery or on my shoulder or something, and it was over Christmas, and I would go in my bedroom and I'd be in there, and I don't think anybody knew I was really just they knew I was getting away from everybody. They finally figured out I was binging Doc Martin, which is a British TV show. So those are like my two dirty little secrets, I
Yeah.
guess, that I'm giving.
Yeah. You know, and I think I've always had, you know, like for some of us, we have aversions to like social media and other things. Some of us that don't like it. There are times where, you know, it can be unhealthy, but there are times where it brings people together.
Hmm.
And celebrating that, like I'm a person who follows trends. Like I may not post myself often, but I will see what's trending. And so like the Joe Exotica was like one of the
Oh,
biggest
yeah.
talking points over the past week from Netflix. And I watched it, you know, and I watched it in one
Yeah.
setting. And in watching, I was thoroughly amused, but it also is like I'm not surprised because you know, I lived in Oklahoma for 17
Right.
years. And it's like I
Right.
know a couple of different Joes, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
I know that is all over the place. People talking about that. Even my husband yesterday said, I think that we should turn that on and watch it just to
Yes.
see what it is.
And
We haven't done it yet.
it's a way of not social distancing. Like there are people who watch it and they say, "Oh, that was a waste of my time," and that's good. Like, you're bringing something to it, and it's I know there's people who are like, "Well, I've got better things to do," especially those with a caregiver mindset. We can be very
Mhm.
serious about things, but there are some things that I watch that they make zero sense. They do not implement into the betterment of society, like
Right.
but they are.
It's your getaway, it's your
Yeah,
escapism that
it's
we have.
it's my
And that's
guilty.
okay.
Yeah, it's a guilty pleasure,
Yeah.
as they say, and I think we need to take the word guilty off of it in this season and just indulge in some of those pleasures, because truthfully, um, it's what's going to help us mentally. If you're mentally tormenting yourself because, oh, I shouldn't be watching this. It's not
Mhm.
that, it's not that pristine. It's not this, that. Well, we're in a state that we've never been in before. And I think
Mhm.
it's very important. I'm not telling you to go out there and get addicted to, television or anything like that, but it's okay to take the guilty off of guilty pleasure
Yeah.
and actually have some pleasures in life. Because the
Yeah.
word pleasure, unfortunately, has been attacked and attached to a lot of negative things, but God gave us a lot of beautiful
Mhm.
pleasures, and we can
Mhm.
separate the things that we put next to it. Like, but the word pleasure is a good word, and
Mhm.
we need to start reconnecting with the truth of there are a lot of beautiful, wonderful things that we can participate in life, and we don't have to feel guilty about it. You
That's
know,
right.
as long as you're being safe and healthy, and you're not violating and hurting anyone else. Um, there's a lot of things, and you have your moral compass. We've talked about that in former
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
uh you can stay within the confines of that. I'm not saying go out and
And
I'm
what?
yeah.
Go out and what,
I,
Drew?
I'm, as I'm going through thoughts in my mind, I was like, well, there's a lot of things I can't restrict, like, cause whatever I name, people are going to be like, okay, he told me I can't do this, or I can't.
Yeah.
uh, but that's part of being a caregiver. Like for me, I think about what I say because I'm like, okay, I can't
Mhm.
say this or that.
Mhm. Right.
But but
I think they know what we're talking about.
yeah, so you've got your things, and so go
Yeah.
out there and just enjoy this life. Be the best caregiver that you can. I think the last thing
And
I can,
best receiver too.
yeah, the
The
best.
receiver. If you've been the caregiver, you may be the receiver now and accept it graciously.
Yeah, you have to draw from that to, like, for me, the best way I learned to be a receiver was looking back at how frustrated I was sometimes as a caregiver. And I tend to then take it easier because I've done it before. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I would
Mm-hmm.
always, in spiritual terms, I call it like the I just thought I missed the term. It just went through my head, but it's sort of like the person who is the caregiver. When you've had a season where you've served under someone else and you've done all these things, when you become the person who's in charge, then you remember. You go back to, it's
Yes.
called the armor bearer. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is why they always tell like young pastors to serve under someone. So then once you become a pastor, you know what it's like, to had been that person with a desire or something waiting. And so it's the same thing in this for me, as I'm having people do things for me now that normally, and even I'm in that position where when I can't open up the church
Mm-hmm.
and be a pastor, like I can't um go and record. I have one podcast client who flies me around the country, and I know we're stuck here for a long time. And I've gotten used to knowing that at least once a month I'm gonna go somewhere. And
Yeah.
now we're in this space where it's like I have to sit back and be okay with, maybe I don't cook dinner every day. Maybe I don't wash all the clothes. Like, and these are things that I do. This is my
Yeah.
release. Yesterday I did a really huge thing. I ordered my groceries and had them delivered. And about 7 items were not right. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then my son, and I didn't put the groceries up. My son put the groceries up. And so as I go to look for stuff to cook, it's like, why is this here? Why is it? But it's okay.
Yeah,
Stop,
it's okay.
breathe. It's
Uh-huh.
all right. And that's what, that was a weird space to be in because I love to grocery shop.
Ah.
It's one of my release places.
Mm-hmm.
And to not be able to go to the grocery store is very crippling for me. Like I
Yeah.
want to go get like right now I want to go.
Well, we tried to do an online grocery. We did one online grocery order, and today we were trying to do another one in a different store, and there weren't any time slots available. We couldn't even complete the order because uh, there's only they do it for 48 hours, and if you've missed a time slot, you can't even order. So that's why my new caregiver decided she was going to go to the grocery store for me as we're doing this podcast right now.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's it's a lot to take in, but we wanted to just come on today and give you a little bit of advice. And a lot of this is, what do you say? And we've always said that about This Life Matters. The two of us serve in our positions, and Gigi especially has a lot of credentials and a lot of a wealth of knowledge that she can give out. But your experience matters. How you're experiencing it, what you're going through. Leave it, leave something in the comments and let us know, how are you getting through some of these things? How are you making the adjustment? Sometimes watching these videos, I've recognized that people are like, yo, I never recognized that this is where I'm at now. You
Mm-hmm.
may have been floating through and not even realizing that you're now the caregiver or you're now the one, you've switched roles.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you dealing with this? And, just let us know what's going on. And we
Yeah.
want to hear from you.
Yeah, we do. Well, okay. I guess that's it for today, Drew. You out there in Washington, Vancouver, Washington, and me here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm really just glad that we could get together and do this. And so we'll see you next time on This Life Matters.